Hello, peace, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about why I quit Instagram and TikTok, and it is not what you think.
Beautiful seeds, you are the masterpiece.
So, about a year ago, I was in a really, really bad place. I had been around someone who was very toxic. It was a work environment. And for a long time, I really doubted some of the things this person would do. And with that, I began to doubt myself because there were parts of me which were telling me that the things this person was doing was not normal. And then there was other parts which were telling me it is normal, it's okay. So it's kind of like my body and my mind were at complete opposite ends of understanding things. And there was a huge clash as well. So there was a lot of that going on. And then finally, I just came to terms and accepted that, okay, this is the way things are, and this is the evidence, and this is how things have been. And finally, I just kind of like accepted it. And from that, there was this huge, huge ripple effect. And thank goodness, everything worked out in a way where I was no longer exposed to this person and there were boundaries there and I didn't have to really interact with this person anymore. But what happened after was something I didn't expect. And what that was this questioning of my sense of self. There was this shakiness about myself. There were these intrusive thoughts I began to have about not so much myself, but other people. There were so many things which were being brought up. And around this time, a friend of mine, she was doing a group coaching program. And this group coaching program was for Muslim women. And we got talking, and she said something which literally changed everything for me. And around that time, even though I had been exposed to this idea, which should really just be a norm, right? This idea had been something which I'd been exposed to for a long time. It's like my creator was just showing me ways of doing this thing. And what happened was this friend of mine, she said, you just need to accept yourself, right? So simple. But it was so hard for me to do for so long. And pretty much most of my life, what I've been doing is just learning about myself, gaining knowledge about so many things. I founded a nonprofit organization because I was so passionate about performing poetry. And then that turned into a publishing house. And then I wrote a book. And then I found out what personality types I am around that time. And I got my degree in my Islamic studies. And all of these things were this exploration of who I am, right? Who am I? And with all of this information, this knowledge that I was taking, the one thing that I wasn't taking was accepting myself. And that's really why I was trying to do all of it, because deep down, I hadn't accepted myself. So it took this experience with this person who was extremely toxic in the work environment for me to finally come to a realization, because there had to be a sense of accepting my reality as it was and rejecting this hopefulness and this idealism that I had of every single person having the capacity to be a great person and literally trusting them with so many things which I shouldn't have done, especially organizationally, trusting them with people to take care of other people when deep down there was just this feeling like, I do not think this people are safe around this person. I always catch myself and I'll be like, no, don't think like that, etc., etc. And finally I accepted it. And the way things worked out was in such a way that it felt like my creator had put things in a way where it just was such an ease to break away from this really toxic relationship. But it really got me to come back to my own self. And the biggest lesson that I learned was to accept myself. And five things happened when I accepted myself. And really, that is what I'm going to be talking about today in this YouTube video, and how all of these five things, and amongst them is me leaving Instagram and me leaving TikTok, of all things, which I never would have expected. It was so unpredictable. So the first thing that happened when I accepted myself is I began to value myself, right? When I valued myself, I began to accept that there were some things which I didn't enjoy doing, and there were some things that I very much did enjoy doing. With that came boundaries, right? So I began to put my boundaries down with certain people. And that was the first thing that happened. I valued myself. The second thing that happened was the reaction I got from other people. As I began to put myself out there a little bit more, being a little bit more sure about what I believed in and sharing it with the world, which I had not done for a long time. Constantly, I was always hiding behind a thing or a person. And finally, when I put myself out there, I got a reaction, right? Got so many reactions. One of the reactions was this resistance, right? This passive aggressive resistance. And I remember when I published my book, and this person, the way they reacted was a surprise. Honestly, I was really surprised because I did not expect this person to act this way, because there'd been so many things that I'd worked with this person on before, and their reaction was just wasn't expected, right? So there's this passive aggressiveness. And this time I trusted my gut feeling. I trusted my intuition that this was the case. And there was another side of the spectrum of resistance where people began to actually be verbally abusive towards me, and they began to say things which were just really surprising and really mean, kind of like, you're so strange, you're so unusual, it's not normal the way you do things, and all of these things, and you should really stop stressing out so much. And I got to these two sides of the spectrum, right? So there's passive aggressiveness and then this kind of abuse at the same time. And it was really difficult. And the third thing which happened was that I got a coach. I got a person who could coach me in growing myself and growing the things that I cared about. Right. And that was very unexpected, because now I've accepted myself. I began to invest in myself, and I began to gain more knowledge in certain things and invest in that knowledge as well, which is something I didn't really feel entitled to doing before, which is so strange. The fourth thing which happened, which I've already touched on, was I put myself out there on Instagram and on TikTok, actually, which is so interesting. And again, I noticed that there was a discrepancy, there was a misalignment with myself and with this mode of communication, this outlet, this social media outlet, you can say. What happened was I began to notice that there was a almost an appeasement that had to be done. There was this kind of having to go with the algorithm. I know this sounds really extreme, and I'm just going to say it, but it felt like a toxic partner. I felt like I was in a relationship with a toxic partner. I constantly had to post at certain times and post certain material, which I felt was authentic at the time. And it was authentic at the time, but the way I was posting and the use of my energy and the pace, that was what was inauthentic to me, because I'm not the kind of person who likes to post things every single day. And here I am doing that because I'm trying to fit the algorithm, get my message out there and all that good stuff. And I was constantly being met with this, like, another kind of resistance, right? And sometimes resistance is a good thing, and blocks are a good thing, because it helps you to go on the path that we are meant to be on. Sometimes there are blocks in our life, and you feel in your heart that this way and this thing that you're deciding to do is so right, that those blocks are just things that you overcome, and you become even more sure about the path that you're taking, right? And with the social media algorithm, specifically Instagram, the kind of blocks that were happening were not the kind of ones which I wanted to persist over, because what it was creating for me was mental clutter. And throughout this whole process, I took a step away from social media because I wanted to see if there was a visibility issue, me being afraid of being visible. And yes, that has been an issue, but I try to actually overcome that by posting on social media and being more visible. And when I realized that that wasn't the thing which was holding me back, there was something that just was misaligned with me and the platform itself and the relationship between this platform and myself, I just decided that, hey, you know what it is? It's the mental clutter. And the thing which I value in accepting myself is that I like simplicity. And within that simplicity, I like to mediate my own complexity, right? So I like to make a space for creativity, for example. I like to structure things in a certain way which fit my energy and fit the pace that I'm working on. And an algorithm literally on this platform on Instagram, it just feels like it throws everything out of whack. And I'm like, okay, now I'm not in my pace. I'm not in my energy. Everything is kind of like feels misaligned and all over the place. And instead of questioning it, like I've done for so long since being on these platforms, instead of questioning it and kind of putting my chin up and continuing and just kind of like not giving in, I decided that I was going to give in to a part of myself which I had never accepted. And that was a part of myself where I don't have all the energy in the world to give to post on certain platforms every single day. I don't have the desire nor the energy to want to create content using my creativity in that way to post on a platform like Instagram. But what I do want is I want to create content which is valuable. I want to create content that which people are going to be searching for online. And that is basically why I am on this platform, YouTube, and I'm also podcasting as well, because I'm able to create that content. Yes, there's an algorithm, but there's a certain energy that people bring on to these platforms. It's an energy of wanting to learn. It's an energy of wanting to grow in a way which is really however you wish. It might be physical growth. My husband, he watches a lot of videos on cooking, right? And kitchen and building things and all of that kind of thing. And for him, that's value. So the point is people come on here for value. And that is what I've been searching for. So yes, fifth thing which happened was that I left Instagram and I left TikTok. And up to the week of deactivating and deleting these accounts, I ended up feeling was something which I was so surprised. There was this freeze response, right? And I'm going to talk about the physiological stuff, hopefully in a later episode. But the point is, I felt extremely lethargic. I felt heavy. I felt negative. I felt grief. I felt, thank goodness I didn't actually feel shame because I had done the work in accepting myself and understanding certain behaviors I had were rooted in shame. And when I kind of came to that realization, the shame, which hopefully I'll talk about in a later episode, it wasn't so strong. It was more the grief, right? So I kind of sat in that feeling of grief. And I didn't really have much energy to do many things, even though I wasn't doing many things at that time. There was a lot of emotional changes that were happening within me. So all of this was leading up to a Friday. In fact, it was a few Fridays ago. And on that Friday, I remember going onto the platform and actually deleting and actually deactivating the account. And I paid attention to the way that I was breathing. And my breathing was extremely like, they weren't shallow breaths. It was like a deep belly breath. And that's how I knew I was like, this is what relief feels like. The clutter inside of my head, the heaviness, the lethargicness, I don't think that's a word, but the lethargy, it had gone. It was gone. But I knew even though I had this feeling of great relief, that it was there was I still wasn't in a place where I could begin to surround myself by all of these other external energies which I had put aside for such a long time, right? So there was still this feeling of tenderness. It was like a tenderness slash relief slash excitement, but there wasn't much creativity going there. It just felt peaceful, right? And I knew that there would be a time that, in God willing, the creativity would come, but it just wasn't at this time. This time I was just feeling that relief. And that was the biggest thing that I felt when I deleted Instagram and when I deleted TikTok. And there was just this space. That's mainly what I felt, just this space to be more of myself. And another thing which I also accepted is that I can be quite sensitive. I I'm very sensitive, actually, not just to stimulating stimulating things like bright lights and loud noises and being around people for too long and being around chaotic environments. But there was another kinds of sensitivity which I hadn't accepted, and that was my sensitivity towards people and how they treat me, and sometimes the approval and all of that. And that is something that I have been working on, but it's something that I never accepted, because instead of saying, hey, that hurt, what I would do is I would push it down so deep that I would pretend that it didn't even exist. So when someone was angry with me, for example, and I know this is like an INFJ thing as well, when someone was angry with me, the thing which I tended to do wasn't rage at them. I would internalize the anger. And then all of a sudden, these people are totally okay. And I am totally not in a great place. And that is because I had internalized the anger, telling myself, hey, that's not how I feel. And I have done an episode on the podcast Beautiful Seeds talking about anger itself. But it wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy because it was a rejection again of a part of myself that, hey, this hurts and this doesn't feel good. And instead of saying that, hey, I don't feel good about this, and telling the person and really being vulnerable in that way, it it was more easier to say that, hey, I'm fine, I'm absolutely okay, and then wait long time, and then wait such a long time that in the end I ended up just completely door slamming certain people and certain things. And I think that's what happened also with Instagram as well. I just got to a stage where there was just this door slam, even though this information was coming to me and it was like, hey, this isn't right for you, this platform doesn't work for you. You know, you've been around these kind of people, and this is the kind of energy that it feels with this platform, like the shadow banning and the choosing what you can post, and the kind of people who get to see your post, and the relationships you have with these people, because this platform is mediating the way you interact with the world. And when I finally realized, I'm like, hey, this platform is making me angry and I don't like it and it doesn't feel good. Accepting that it didn't feel good, and being that made it okay to say, okay, now I will choose how I interact with the people that I care about without having to rely on an algorithm to let my message get to those people, right? And now I get to choose what kind of content I create. I get to choose what my pace is. I get to choose how to work with my energy, because that is something that I can do. And it's taken me a long time to realize that this is the way I am, this is the way that I work. And it might not be a way of thinking that people are used to, but it's the way of thinking of me, and people who are aligned with me on a much deeper level will appreciate, right? And they'll appreciate that value, that kind of maybe not following the algorithm, not being always on society's flow of what is trending and what is not trending, and kind of going with our own flow as well. So in a nutshell, all of these things happened when I began to accept myself. And the most unpredictable thing was deleting Instagram and deleting TikTok. And it was so fulfilling that I no longer had to rely on a platform to create, to send out my message, and to be myself, right? To be myself. And a part of myself is that I have limited energy, and that's okay. That's a part of being an introvert, and it's a part of being an INFJ. It's a part of being an Enneagram 4. It's a part of being a wing 5. It's a part of being all of these things. And that is absolutely okay, right? And that is why actually I posted the growth video on YouTube about what happens when you're trying to grow, and how to react with certain people who have a reaction to you, and the extremes of those reactions that I've talked about in this video. But anyway, that is it in a nutshell. I really hope that you hopefully have the confidence to do what you feel is most aligned with you. You make a choice that is most aligned with you, with your energy, with every single part of you. And I mean, I would love to hear from you as well. Have you thought about leaving Instagram? Have you thought about leaving TikTok? Have you thought about starting a new platform? Have you thought about stopping another platform? I'd love to hear more about your experiences. Please do share it in the comments wherever you're watching or wherever you are listening to this. I will be reading that and replying, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a beautiful and have a blessed day, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you are listening or you are watching this. Have a brilliant and beautiful day. Peace.